So when it comes to number lines, inequalities, and absolute values for the test, there's not, a lot of academic content that we need to review. Let me just do it real fast. When we're dealing with a number line, is that gonna work? Yes. And you're dealing with inequalities, this right here would represent, let's say this is n. This arrow with an open hole will represent all values that are greater than n. And if it's a closed, it includes n, which means it would look like that. A lot of times inequalities show up in word problems, so you want to think very carefully when you notice this about what things like at least, no more than mean. Okay, so I don't know if I can even think of a comprehensive list of all the clever ways they can put inequalities into a word problem, but you're always going to want to ask yourself, does it include the number or does it exclude it? At least 2 means 2 or more, right? No more than 2 means 2 or less. So just think about, more than 2 means greater than 2. You're just going to want to think very carefully about what those words mean, okay? Watch out, can be pretty spicy when it comes to word problems. So what I like to do is when I see the word problem and I see something like no more than, I like to look down at the answers and just kind of see, do I have that and this and that? And then the first thing I do is I just kind of figure out which one I'm dealing with, just because I know that is the kind of thing that they will try to be tricky on. The other thing you want to know as far as academic content goes is that absolute values will always be positive. So the absolute value of -5 is equal to the absolute value of 5. These are both equal to 5. Okay, the absolute value is the positive distance. Well, it's the distance. All distances are positive. Add. All distance is positive. Okay. Absolute values. When you're dealing with absolute values, you're going to basically have a system of equations. So let's say I have the absolute value of 3x plus 2 is equal to, no, let's not do that. Let's do minus 3 is equal to 17. You're going to want to treat the absolute value like it's a parenthesis in the order of operations. Then you're going to create a system of equations, okay? Because there's 2 potential answers here. 3x plus 2 can be equal to positive 20, and 3x plus 2 can be equal to negative 20. Because this right here is going to be positive 20 or negative 20. That's literally what we're writing here. So there's going to be 2 answers. Just keep that in mind. It's oftentimes when I see this, they don't even expect you to solve for x. There's going to be something else they're kind of like getting at. And then the other thing I want to remind you about inequalities is when you're dealing with in the algebraic process with inequalities, if you're going to multiply or divide by a negative, you're going to flip the sign. So if I have negative 3x is less than 15, and so I'm going to divide by 3 here, x is going to be greater than negative 5. You flip the sign. And the reason we do this is because as the absolute value of a negative number gets bigger, it's actually more to the left on the number line, and we compensate for that by flipping the sign. And you can kind of like think about this for a second. Let's say x is negative 4. Okay, so that's negative 3 times negative 4 is going to be positive 12. So that makes sense, right? Because negative 4 is greater than negative 5. But let's try negative 6. -3 times -6 will be 18. 18 is not less than 15. That doesn't work. So if you're having a hard time conceptualizing this, just, solve the inequality and then do one number above it and one number below it to kind of get your bearings, if you will. Negative numbers and direction can be quite tricky. And it's not that it's usually not that my students don't understand the concept of it. It's that it's very easy to kind of get like backwards. Very, very easy to get backwards in your mind. So just be very careful with this. And, this is one of those questions that you might want to just check the answers, do a quick little double take on. But by and large, these questions are more going to be logic problems, okay? They're logic problems very often, okay? So just the more you practice them, the more you try them, the better you'll be at them. This is not something that I want you guessing on as you're working through this, not for a long time. I want you to sincerely try, even if it takes you a little bit. I want you to work through these problems because you can work them out if you try. And if you make a mistake on a practice test, then it's probably one of the mistakes that they built into the problem as a distractor, and then that'll be a lesson for you to learn. So definitely give these your best shot. Okay.